Men are choosing voluntary celibacy in 2026. In today's world where relationships seem more complicated than ever before, a quiet revolution is taking place among men. As we enter 2026, more and more men are making a conscious choice for voluntary celibacy and stepping away from the dating scene entirely. They are finding fulfillment in solitude and self improvement rather than pursuing traditional partnerships. What led to this point, and what does it mean for society as a whole? Stick around until the end, because the full picture reveals some uncomfortable truths about the current state of affairs that could reshape how we view gender dynamics moving forward. And you will see exactly why this shift is not a temporary trend, but a permanent transformation that no one can ignore. If you are enjoying these angry guy videos and the no nonsense insights I bring, please show your support by buying me a Red Bull. The link is in the description, and it really helps keep this channel going strong so I can continue delivering content that cuts through the noise and gets straight to the heart of what is really happening out there. Men have finally reached a breaking point after decades of being told to stand down. For years, women have expressed a desire to be left alone, to not be approached by men in public, and to navigate life on their own terms. Men took that message to heart. They stopped approaching, they withdrew from the social and dating arenas. Now, as economic realities bite hard with rising costs for food rent and basic living expenses, we see a shift where some voices are calling for men to return to their previous roles. But men are not coming back. They have discovered peace in walking away, and they are not looking back. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a man who has spent years observing the experiences of his father, his brothers, and his friends. He has seen how the system can turn against men in relationships in family courts and in social expectations. He has watched as efforts aimed at accountability sometimes created environments where men felt their lives could be upended with little recourse. This man decides enough is enough. He chooses to focus on himself. He minimizes his possessions, invests wisely perhaps in crypto or home businesses, and builds a life of quiet contentment. He sets up a simple space with just the essentials, a roof over his head, 3 meals a day, a comfortable place to rest, a way to stay clean, and some form of entertainment that brings him joy without the added layers of complication. This is not a life of deprivation, but one of deliberate simplicity where every choice serves his peace rather than external demands. And in this choice, he finds something profound, a level of freedom that many have forgotten exists. Now, contrast that with the reality unfolding for many women who once pushed for independence without fully considering the full weight of what that independence would require in a world where support systems are straining under economic pressure. Women traded reliance on individual men for reliance on broader structures, and now those structures are showing their limits. The state, which many turn to for protection and provision, is facing its own challenges, and the safety net that was promised is not holding up as expected. This is not about blame, but about observing cause and effect in a system that has been evolving for decades. Men listened when they were told to step back. They did not argue or push back aggressively. Instead, they simply redirected their energy inward toward personal growth, financial stability, and mental clarity. The result is a growing group of men who view traditional dating not as an opportunity, but as a potential liability that could disrupt the stability they have worked so hard to create. They see the stories of friends and family members who entered relationships with good intentions only to face unexpected financial burdens, legal complications, or emotional drain that left them worse off. These are not isolated incidents, but patterns that have become too common to ignore. So men have chosen a different path, one that prioritizes self preservation and long term well being over short term connections that carry hidden costs. This voluntary celibacy is not born out of anger or resentment, but out of a clear eyed assessment of risks and rewards. Men are calculating the value of their time, their resources, and their emotional energy, and they are deciding that investing it elsewhere yields better returns. Think about it. A man who once might have spent weekends planning dates or evenings listening to someone else's stresses now uses that time to build skills, learn new trades, or simply recharge in solitude. He might be working out at home, grilling a meal he prepared himself, or diving into a hobby that brings genuine satisfaction without the need to perform or prove anything to another person. This is the appeal of the minimalist lifestyle that so many men are embracing naturally because it aligns with how they are wired to thrive. Most men do not need an abundance of material things to feel content. Give them the basics and a bit of purpose, and they can create their own version of heaven right where they are. A modest living space, equipped with workout gear, a few quality items for entertainment, and the freedom to come and go as they please is often more than enough. There is no constant pressure to acquire more to impress or to maintain appearances. Instead, there is room to breathe, to think, and to grow on their own terms. Women, on the other hand, have been socialized in a different way where more is often equated with security and fulfillment. This is not a judgment, but an observation of natural tendencies that have been amplified by cultural messages over time. When those external supports falter, the gap becomes visible. Reports are emerging of women facing housing, challenges turning to shelters, or even living in vehicles because the costs of independent living have outpaced what many can sustain alone. This is happening amid broader economic signals that experts are pointing to as indicators of strain in 2026. Inflation on essentials, combined with stagnant wages in certain sectors, is creating a squeeze that no one can deny. Men who have walked away are largely insulated from this because their needs are lower and their lifestyles are leaner by design. They are not competing for the same level of consumption or status. They are saving, investing, and building personal reserves that allow them to weather storms without relying on dual incomes or shared expenses that come with partnership. The dating economy has shifted dramatically as a result. Men are no longer subsidizing meals through dates or contributing to shared living costs in casual or serious relationships. They are not providing the emotional labor of constant availability or the financial buffer that many took for granted. This is not punishment, but consequence. Men did exactly what was asked of them. They left women alone. They stopped the approaches in public spaces. They withdrew from the role of provider and protector in the traditional sense because the authority and respect that once accompanied those roles were systematically undermined. Over decades, movements and policies aimed at empowerment sometimes crossed into areas that eroded the natural balance. Men saw their father's older brothers and friends navigate divorce courts, child custody battles, and social accusations that carried heavy penalties, even when evidence was thin. The message was received loud and clear. The system no longer valued men's contributions in the same way, and so men stopped contributing in those arenas. They redirected their efforts towards self reliance and mutual benefit among themselves, or simply towards solitude. Now, women are feeling the absence of that support in tangible ways. Some are expressing frustration, openly wondering why men are not stepping up as they once did. But men have moved on. They have found that life without the complications of modern dating brings clarity and calm. Sex, which was once seen as a primary bargaining point, has lost its leverage because many men now view it as just another potential complication rather than a necessity. Without that chip on the table, the negotiations change entirely. Women who once held certain expectations about male attention and provision are confronting a reality where those expectations no longer hold power. This is the winter that some relationship experts warned about years ago, where the consequences of long term cultural shifts come home to roost. It is not sudden, but the culmination of years of incremental changes that men have been processing quietly. Society as a whole is feeling the ripple effects. The economy relies on certain patterns of consumption and pairing that are now disrupted. Birth rates are impacted when men opt out of family formation. Housing markets shift when single men require less space and fewer amenities. Workforce dynamics evolve when men prioritize careers or side businesses that fit their independent lifestyles. These are not abstract ideas, but observable trends that experts are documenting as we move through 2026. The collapse signals that many have been discussing are not just economic, but social and relational as well. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Men walking away is not causing the strain, but it is exposing weaknesses that were already present in the structures built over the past 50 years. Feminism and related movements brought important conversations to the forefront, but they also created imbalances that left men questioning their place in the equation. When authority over children was shifted toward state oversight, and women were positioned as primary decision makers in family matters, many men saw the writing on the wall. They realized that their role as fathers could be diminished or removed without their consent. This realization led to a collective decision to disengage from reproduction and partnership in large numbers. It is a rational response to a system that no longer incentivized male involvement in the same way. Men are not designed to chase validation in environments where the risks outweigh the rewards. They are wired for survival provision and protection, but only when those efforts are met with mutual respect and shared accountability. When that reciprocity fades, men adapt by conserving their energy for what serves them best. This is why voluntary celibacy feels liberating rather than restrictive for so many. It is a choice to avoid liabilities that include not just financial ones, but emotional and legal ones as well. Children once seen as a legacy become viewed as potential points of vulnerability when custody and support systems favor one side disproportionately. Women in this scenario operate within a framework where the state delegates authority, but men bear the cost without equivalent control. The result is a generation of men who say no thank you to the whole arrangement. They would rather build their own worlds than subsidize ones that do not value their input equally. This is evident in the rise of home based businesses among men who are creating income streams that do not require traditional employment structures or partnerships. They are investing in assets like cryptocurrency that offer independence from centralized systems. They are curating personal spaces with equipment for fitness entertainment and comfort that require no external approval. The peace they describe is real, and it comes from eliminating the constant negotiation that modern dating often demands. No more wondering if attention will be reciprocated or if efforts will be appreciated. No more navigating mixed signals or unspoken expectations. Just a straightforward life where a man answers to himself and builds according to his own vision. Women who are now facing the brunt of economic pressures are discovering that independence comes with its own set of challenges that nature did not equip them to handle alone in the same way. This is not about capability, but about complementary design. Men have historically shouldered the survival aspects while women focused on nurturing and replication. But when the survival role is removed or devalued, the equation shifts. Women are not built to thrive in prolonged isolation from support networks the way men can because their natural wiring leans toward connection and caregiving. When those connections are severed by choice or circumstance, The strain shows up in housing instability, financial shortfalls, and emotional isolation. Shelters and streets are becoming more populated with women who once believed the system would provide indefinitely. This is the harsh reality that experts have been signaling for years, and 2026 is bringing it into sharp focus. Men, on the other hand, are largely fine because they have always been adaptable minimalists at heart. A shoebox apartment with the basics is sufficient for most men to feel content and productive. They do not require the same level of social validation or material accumulation to maintain their sense of self. This difference is not a flaw, but a strength that allows men to detach and rebuild when necessary. Without the need to impress or provide for others, men are freeing up resources that go directly into their own growth and security. Savings accounts are growing, investment portfolios are expanding, and personal skills are being honed in ways that create true independence. The dating market has lost its appeal because men no longer see value in trading their peace for temporary companionship that carries long term risks. This is a profound shift because it removes the final leverage point that many assumed would always bring men back to the table. When sex and intimacy are no longer priorities or are viewed as optional, at best, the power dynamic changes permanently. Women are left to confront the world head on without the buffer that male involvement once provided. Society is collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions, and men have chosen not to be the ones holding it up at personal cost. This is not abandonment, but self preservation on a massive scale. The stories emerging from this era are powerful because they highlight human nature in its raw form. Men who have walked away describe a sense of relief that comes from no longer carrying the weight of expectations that were never fully reciprocated. They talk about waking up without dread about the next conflict or financial demand. They speak of days filled with purposeful activity that aligns with their strengths rather than constant compromise. These are not bitter tales, but ones of quiet triumph where a man reclaims his autonomy after years of feeling like an afterthought in a system designed to extract from him. Women on the other side are sharing their own stories of struggle, where the promise of independence has met the reality of isolation and scarcity. Some are vocal about wanting men to approach again to date to provide companionship and support, but the response from men is often a polite but firm no. The trust has been eroded over time, and rebuilding it would require fundamental changes that many are not willing to make. Men have learned from the past. They have seen the patterns repeat across generations, and they refuse to participate in the cycle any longer. This is why the movement, known as Men Walking Away, has gained such momentum. It is not organized in the traditional sense, but it is a collective recognition of shared experience that leads to individual action. Each man who chooses solitude is voting with his life for a different way forward. He is saying that his peace, his resources, and his future are worth more than the uncertain rewards of modern partnership. And as more men make this choice, the landscape changes for everyone. The economy feels it through reduced consumer spending on date nights, shared housing, and family oriented products. The social fabric shifts as fewer relationships form and birth rates continue to decline. Cultural conversations evolve to address why so many men are opting out rather than simply labeling it as a problem to be fixed on men's end. This is a necessary reckoning because ignoring the root causes will only deepen the divide. Experts have been clear that 2026 marks a tipping point where the signals of collapse become impossible to dismiss. Housing costs continue to climb while wages in many sectors lag behind. Food prices strain budgets that were already tight. Basic living expenses that once seemed manageable now require dual incomes or external support that is no longer guaranteed. Women who relied on those dynamics are left exposed, while men who prepared by walking away are positioned to endure. This disparity is not accidental, but the outcome of choices made over decades. Feminism positioned women as capable of everything independently, but nature and economics have a way of revealing limits. Men were cast as optional or even problematic in many narratives, and they responded by becoming exactly that optional in the dating and family spheres. The state stepped in as a surrogate provider through policies and programs, but those too are reaching their breaking points as budgets tighten and priorities shift. Women operating as agents within that framework now find themselves without the full backing they expected. Men understand this broken system because they have lived its consequences through the lives of those close to them. Fathers who paid child support but had limited access to their children. Brothers who faced false accusations that derailed careers. Friends who lost homes and savings in divorce proceedings that favored one side. These stories are not myths, but documented realities that have accumulated over 50 years. Men got the message and they acted on it by abandoning the dating economy entirely. They left the roles that no longer served them and they found peace in the process. Now, women are on their own in ways they did not anticipate, and the cries for men to return are growing louder. But men are not listening because they have built something better for themselves. They are minimalist by nature, and that nature is serving them well in this climate. A man can live happily with very little because he does not tie his happiness to accumulation or external validation. He owns what he needs and avoids what brings clutter or stress. This selective approach extends to relationships as well. If a connection does not add clear value without introducing disproportionate risk, it is avoided altogether. This is the core of voluntary celibacy. It is a deliberate choice to prioritize quality of life over quantity of experiences that come with strings attached. Without women in the equation, men are saving more, investing more, and enjoying the simple pleasures that do not require negotiation. Video games, grills, good food, good drinks, and personal fitness become sources of satisfaction that are reliable and self contained. Solitude is no longer feared, but embraced as the foundation for true freedom. This is the peace that men have found, and it is why they are not looking back. The final bargaining chip that women held has been neutralized because men no longer see it as essential to their fulfillment. When sex is viewed as a liability rather than a drive, the entire dynamic shifts. Women have no remaining leverage to bring men back into the fold on the old terms. This leaves them facing the harsh realities of the world without the protection or provision that men once offered. It is a stark reminder of natural design, where men were built for survival and women for nurturing, but the collusion with state structures disrupted that balance. Men no longer accept delegated authority or systems that treat them as disposable. They have walked away, and in doing so, they have exposed the fragility of the arrangements that were taken for granted. Society is collapsing at the seams, and women are completely on their own in this new reality. Men are focusing inward, building their personal heavens, and thriving in ways that do not depend on the old social. Contracts. This is not the end of the world, but the beginning of a new chapter where individual men define their own paths without the burden of propping up a system that no longer values them equally. The stories of men who have embraced this life are inspiring because they show what is possible when one stops fighting against the current and instead flows with it towards self reliance. One man might describe how he sold his large home, downsized to a small, efficient space, and used the savings to start a home based business that now supports him fully. Another talks about the relief of no longer worrying about date expenses or emotional labor that drained his energy for work. A third shares how investing in cryptocurrency allowed him to build a cushion that gives him options he never had while tied to traditional expectations. These are not fantasies, but real accounts from men who have lived both sides and chosen the side of peace. They see children and family formation as optional rather than obligatory because the risks to their involvement are too high in the current legal and social climate. This perspective is shared widely among those who have witnessed the fallout from previous generations. The system destroyed lives through overreach, and men learned to protect themselves by disengaging. Women are now living with the outcomes of that disengagement, and it is manifesting in increased financial hardship. Living in cars, shelters, or on the streets is becoming a reality for some who cannot sustain independent housing costs. This is only getting worse as economic pressures mount and the state resources stretch thin. Men, on the other hand, are fine because their minimalist approach allows them to adapt quickly and efficiently. They do not need luxury or constant social stimulation to maintain happiness. A basic setup is sufficient, and anything beyond that is chosen selectively to enhance rather than complicate. This difference in wiring explains why men can thrive in solitude, while many women struggle without the relational and supportive elements they were designed to seek. It is not superiority or inferiority, but simple complementarity that has been ignored for too long. Without men subsidizing through dates or providing attention during lonely times, women are confronting the full cost of their independence. The state which they traded men for is broke and unable to fill the gap indefinitely. This is the point where begging for men to return begins, but men have already moved on to their own version of fulfillment. They will not come back because the peace they have found is too valuable to trade for the uncertainties of the old system. Voluntary celibacy has become not just a choice, but a lifestyle that offers clarity, purpose, and control. Men are done with the roles that expose them to unnecessary risk without corresponding reward. They have abandoned society in the sense of traditional participation and instead created micro societies of one where they set the rules. This is the power of walking away. It forces a reevaluation of what is truly necessary for a good life. And for most men, it turns out that less involvement with the opposite sex leads to more personal success and satisfaction. The economy is reflecting this shift as consumer patterns change and family units form less frequently. Experts have made it clear that 2026 is the year when these signals become undeniable and society must adapt or continue to fracture. Women are on their own, and men are okay with that because they have built their own resilience. This is the story of 2026, a year where men finally chose themselves over a system that asked too much and gave too little in return. The voluntary celibacy movement is growing because it works. It delivers peace, it preserves resources, and it allows men to focus on what truly matters to them without distraction or drain. As more men join this path, the message spreads through quiet example rather than loud proclamation. Friends notice the the calm demeanor, the financial stability, and the overall contentment, and they begin to ask questions. The answers are simple. I stopped approaching because I was told to. I walked away because the risks outweighed the rewards. I found peace in solitude because it allows me to build without compromise. These conversations are happening in private, but their collective impact is reshaping the cultural landscape. Women who once held the narrative of empowerment are now facing the practical limits of that narrative in a world of rising costs and limited support. Some are adapting, by seeking new ways to build independence, but others are turning back toward men with requests for the very attention they previously rejected. The response is consistent. Men are not interested in returning to the old dynamic because they have experienced something better. This is not cruelty, but consequence. Actions have outcomes, and the outcome of decades of pushing men aside is that men stayed aside. They did not fight to stay in a space that did not want them. They simply found new spaces where they could thrive. The result is a generation of men who are stronger, more self sufficient, and less entangled in cycles that previously held them back. They are buying crypto, starting businesses, investing in themselves, and enjoying the solitude that brings clarity. Sex, women, and children are seen as potential liabilities rather than assets because the system has made them so. When a man cannot reliably be a father without state interference or a partner without financial risk, he opts out. This is rational, not emotional. It is the logical conclusion of a broken contract. Women, in collusion with state structures, set the terms, and men accepted those terms by withdrawing completely. Now the winter has arrived, as one prominent voice put it years ago, and the cold is being felt most acutely by those who were least prepared for it. Men prepared by walking away early, and they are reaping the benefits of that preparation. Their lives are simpler, their stress levels are lower, and their futures are more secure. This is the reality of voluntary celibacy in 2026. It is not a protest, but a preference for a better way of living. Men have chosen peace over partnership when partnership came with too many strings. They have chosen self reliance over shared burdens that were not truly shared. And they have chosen to focus on their own development rather than subsidizing a system that viewed them as expendable. The stories continue to unfold as more men share their journeys. One describes how he left a high stress job that supported a lifestyle for two and now works part time on his own terms while enjoying hobbies that were previously sidelined. Another talks about the financial freedom that comes from not dating, where every dollar stays in his pocket for investments or simple pleasures. A third explains how solitude allowed him to confront personal goals without the distraction of maintaining a relationship that demanded constant emotional input. These accounts are consistent in their theme of liberation through detachment. Voluntary celibacy is freeing men from the expectation to perform provider, protector, and emotional support roles simultaneously without the authority or appreciation that once balanced the load. The system stripped the authority and left the responsibilities, and men responded by dropping the responsibilities altogether. This is the directness of the choice. It is not complicated, it is straightforward, and it is working for those who make it. As society signals collapse through economic indicators, men are positioned as the ones who can endure because they never relied on the collapsing structures in the first place. Women who did rely on them are now learning the hard way what self sufficiency truly requires. It requires more than rhetoric, it requires practical skills, financial discipline, and a willingness to accept the full weight of independence without fallback options. Many are finding that weight heavier than anticipated, and the calls for men to return are the natural response. But men have already returned to themselves, and that is where they intend to stay. The peace of solitude is addictive in the best way. It offers control, clarity, and contentment that no external validation can match. Men are minimalist by nature, and this nature is flourishing in the current climate. They rid their lives of clutter, stress, and unnecessary obligations. They keep what serves them and discard what does not. This selective living extends to every area, including relationships. If it does not add net value, it is not included. This is why dating has lost its appeal. The costs are too high, the benefits too uncertain, and the peace too precious to risk. Voluntary celibacy is the ultimate expression of this selectivity. It is saying no to complications so that yes can be said to personal growth. Men are building their own heavens at home with the tools and comforts that fit their lifestyle. A grill for cooking good food, a setup for exercise, a space for entertainment, and the freedom to enjoy it all without interruption. This is happiness redefined on male terms, and it does not require a partner to complete it. In fact, adding a partner often subtracts from it by introducing variables that disrupt the balance. Women have lost their final bargaining chip because men no longer desire what was once assumed to be irresistible. When the desire for sex fades or is managed independently, the negotiation table empties. There is nothing left to trade for the attention, provision, or protection that men once offered freely. This leaves women facing the world without the buffer, and the reality is stark. Nature designed women for replication, nurturing, and caregiving, but survival was always a shared endeavor. When men withdraw from the sharing, the survival aspect falls fully on women, and many are not equipped for it in the modern economic landscape. The state cannot replace the individual support that men provided, and the cracks are showing. Housing costs are pushing women into precarious situations. Food insecurity is rising. Basic expenses are becoming luxuries. This is the point where the begging begins, but the response is silence from men who have found their own way. They will not subsidize meals or rents. They will not provide attention on demand. They will not re enter the dating economy because it no longer serves them. Society must now adapt to a world where men have opted out and women are left to navigate alone. This is the story of 2026, a year of reckoning where choices made over decades bear their full fruit. Men are thriving in their simplicity while the broader system strains under its own weight. The voluntary celibacy choice is not going away because it delivers results that the old way could not. Peace, prosperity, and purpose are found in walking away, and men are not looking back. They understand the broken system that destroyed lives in the past, and they refuse to repeat it. Women are now living the consequences, and the contrast is clear. Men are fine. Women are struggling. This is not a call to action, but an observation of what happens when men listen and act on the messages they have been given for years. They walked away exactly as requested, and in doing so, they discovered a better path. The economy is collapsing, the social structures are shifting, and men have positioned themselves to survive and thrive independently. This is the power of the minimalist mindset. It allows adaptation without panic. It focuses energy on what matters most: self and survival. Women were designed differently, and that design is being tested in the absence of male partnership. The replication and nurturing aspects require support to flourish, and without it, they falter under economic pressure. The state as a replacement has proven insufficient, and the reality is sinking in. Men will not return because their peace is too hard won to surrender. They have built personal heavens and they guard them fiercely. Video games, good drinks, workouts, and quiet evenings are the rewards of their choice. No drama, no demands, no risks, just pure, unadulterated freedom. This is voluntary celibacy in action, and it is spreading because it works. Men see it in their friends, and they want the same. The movement grows not through campaigns, but through lived example. Each man who chooses this path becomes a testament to its value. He saves more, invests better, and lives lighter. He avoids the liabilities that once seemed inevitable. Sex is optional, children are optional, and relationships are optional because the mandatory costs were too high. This is the clarity that comes from walking away. Men got the message from 50 years of witch hunts and overreach. They abandoned the dating economy, and now women do not know what to do. The begging is the acknowledgement that the independent path was not as sustainable as promised. But men are done subsidizing. They are done providing attention on command. They are done with the entire arrangement because it no longer aligns with their survival and well being. The year 2026 is when this becomes undeniable. Experts have signaled it, and the lived experiences are confirming it. Society is collapsing, and women are on their own. Men are focusing on themselves and their peace. This is the new normal, and it is here to stay. The rhetorical question that lingers is what will happen next? Will women adapt in meaningful ways, or will the calls for men to return grow louder without results? Will the system reform to incentivize male participation again, or will it continue to fracture? Men are not waiting for answers. They are living their answers in the present by choosing celibacy and self focus. Their stories are ones of transformation from burdened participants to free agents. They describe the weight lifting off their shoulders when they stopped approaching, stopped dating, and stopped caring about the expectations that no longer applied. The relief is palpable, and it fuels their commitment to this path. Peace is the ultimate currency, and they have found an abundant supply in solitude. This is why the intensity of the choice remains strong. It is direct and unapologetic because it is based on hard earned lessons. Men will not be fooled again by promises that the system has broken before. They have seen the destruction, in the lives of those before them, and they refuse to let it happen to themselves. Voluntary celibacy is their shield and their strategy for navigating a collapsing society. It allows them to minimize exposure to risk while maximizing personal gain. Women are feeling the absence acutely because their design leans toward connection and support. Without it, the economic realities hit harder. Living expenses that were manageable with shared costs become overwhelming alone. Rent, food, and basics consume more than income can cover for many. Shelters and cars become temporary homes, and the street looms as a possibility for some. This is not exaggeration, but the reported reality as costs climb and support dwindles. Men, on the other hand, need little to survive and thrive. A shoebox with basics is paradise because it eliminates clutter and stress. They selectively own what serves them and avoid what does not. This mindset is their superpower in 2026. It keeps them stable while others scramble. Without women, men save money, invest in crypto, start home businesses, and build personal sanctuaries. They enjoy good food, good drinks, and the solitude that brings true contentment. Sex is no longer a driving force, but a potential complication to avoid. Women have lost their chip, and the negotiation is over. Men will not subsidize or provide or protect because the authority and respect were removed long ago. The state took over and women became its agents, but the state is broke and the delegation of authority no longer holds appeal for men. They understand the system destroyed their predecessors and they are done with it. This is the direct message that resonates in the hearts of men who have walked away. They are minimalist by nature, and that nature is saving them now. Women cannot find happiness with so little because their wants are wired differently. They seek more and more brings stress for men who prefer simplicity. The contrast is stark, and it explains the current divide. Men are happy with less, while women struggle with the same. This is not judgment, but observation of natural differences that culture tried to erase but could not. The result is men thriving in their chosen celibacy and women confronting the limits of independence without support. The economy is signaling collapse, and 2026 is the year it becomes clear. Men have prepared by disengaging early. They are fine because their needs are met internally. Women are not because their needs were always partially external. The begging for approaches and dates is the cry of that realization, but men are not responding. They have found peace and they are keeping it. This is the story We are living right now a story of men choosing voluntary celibacy over dating because it is the smarter path in a broken world. They walked away as asked and they found something better. Society must now deal with the consequences while men focus on their own heavens. The intensity of this truth is what makes it powerful. It is direct because it has to be. The facts are clear and the outcomes are visible. Men are done, and women are discovering what that means in real time. The peace of solitude is their reward, and it is worth every sacrifice of the old way. This is voluntary celibacy in 2026, and it is only growing stronger as more men see the benefits and follow suit. The rhetorical pacing continues as we examine each layer. Let us delve deeper into the economic aspect because it is the most tangible proof of the shift. Rising rent costs have pushed many into impossible situations where a single income cannot cover a decent living space. Food prices have increased to the point where basic nutrition becomes a budget challenge. Utilities and transportation add to the burden, and the cumulative effect is a squeeze that forces choices between essentials. Men who live minimally avoid this trap. Their smaller spaces cost less to maintain. Their simpler diets are cheaper to sustain. Their transportation needs are often reduced because they do not commute for dual purposes or social obligations. This financial efficiency is a direct result of walking away. Without the need to impress or share or support another person, the budget stretches further and savings accumulate faster. Investing in crypto becomes a viable strategy for building wealth without traditional risks. Home businesses thrive because time is freed up from dating and relationship maintenance. Men are creating their own economies within their personal spaces, and it works. The contrast with women who are facing these costs alone is striking. Many who once relied on shared expenses or male provision are now scrambling to cover everything solo. The state programs that were meant to bridge gaps are overwhelmed and underfunded in this climate. The result is increased reports of women in shelters or vehicles struggling to maintain stability. This is the direct outcome of the trade that was made years ago when men were pushed aside in favor of institutional support. The institution is failing to deliver, and the individual men are no longer stepping in to fill the void. They have their own voids to avoid and their own futures to secure. This is the intensity of the situation. It is not abstract theory, but lived experience for growing numbers of people. Men are choosing celibacy because it protects them from becoming part of someone else's financial rescue plan. They will not subsidize meals through dates or rents through cohabitation. They will not provide the attention that fills lonely moments because their own moments are now filled with purposeful activity. The peace they have cultivated is sacred, and it does not include re entering a system that previously burned them. Storytelling brings this to life through hypothetical but realistic scenarios that mirror what is happening. Picture a young man in his late 20s who has watched his older brother go through a contentious divorce where child support payments continued long after access to the children was restricted. He sees his friend lose a job over a misinterpreted comment in the workplace amid heightened sensitivity to certain interactions. He hears stories from his father about years of providing for a family only to be sidelined in decision making. This young man decides early to avoid the pattern. He focuses on his career, builds a small nest egg, and cultivates hobbies that bring joy without external dependence. When the opportunity for dating arises, he weighs it against the potential for similar outcomes and chooses to pass. Instead, he invests in workout equipment for his apartment, starts a side business selling custom items online, and enjoys evenings with a good meal and a drink in hand. His life is not empty, but full in a self directed way. He feels no lack because he has redefined what fulfillment means. This is voluntary celibacy, not as deprivation, but as strategic choice. Now, scale this up to thousands of men making similar calculations, and you see the societal shift. The dating pool shrinks, the marriage rates drop, and the birth rates follow. Women who expected to have options find fewer available. The economy feels the impact as fewer households form and consumption patterns change. Experts point to 2026 as the year these trends reach critical mass and the collapse signals become mainstream conversation. Men are not the cause, but they are the group that has adapted best by withdrawing early. Their minimalist nature is the key. They do not need much, and what they do need, they provide for themselves. This self sufficiency is the foundation of their peace, and it is why they will not look back. Women, on the other hand, are designed for roles that thrive with support and replication. Without the complementary male presence, the nurturing aspect struggles under survival pressure. The state cannot nurture in the same personal way, and the gap is felt deeply. This is why the begging for men to approach again is emerging. It is the recognition that the independent path has limits that nature did not erase. Men have the message and they are sticking to it. They walked away and found peace in solitude. They will not return to subsidize or support because the system made it clear that their authority and value were not required. The collusion between women and state structures delegated power in ways that left men as optional participants. Men accepted the optionality by opting out completely. This is the directness of the response. It is professional in its logic, even as it carries the intensity of lived frustration filtered through clarity. No one is villainized, but the patterns are named and the consequences are accepted. Voluntary celibacy is the healthy adaptation to an unhealthy system. It allows men to survive and thrive where others falter. The year 2026 is when this adaptation becomes the dominant story. Men are fine, society is not. Women are bearing the brunt, and the contrast is impossible to ignore. This is the rhetorical heart of the discussion. It invites reflection on how we arrived here and where we go next. But the men who have walked away are not waiting for collective answers. They are living their individual solutions and finding them sufficient. The peace is real. The savings are growing and the personal heavens are being built one deliberate choice at a time. This is the power of men walking away, and it is the essence of voluntary celibacy in 2026. The narrative continues with even more depth as we explore the psychological and social layers that make this choice so enduring. Men who embrace voluntary celibacy often describe a profound sense of mental clarity that comes from removing the constant variables of another person's needs and moods from their daily equation. No longer do they spend energy decoding signals or managing expectations. Instead, their thoughts are free to focus on personal goals, career advancement, or simple enjoyment of the present moment. This mental space is a luxury that many did not realize they were missing until they claimed it. In the past, dating often meant navigating a landscape of mixed messages where one day interest was high and the next it was absent or conditional. That uncertainty created a low level stress that accumulated over time, draining motivation and focus. By stepping away, men eliminate that drain entirely. They wake up with a clear mind and a clear schedule that belongs to them alone. This is the storytelling element that resonates because it is relatable to anyone who has ever felt the weight of emotional labor in relationships. Picture the man who previously spent hours texting or planning outings only to find the effort unreciprocated or met with criticism. Now, those hours are his to use for reading, learning a new skill, or simply resting without guilt. The peace is not passive, but active. It fuels productivity and creativity in ways that surprise even the men experiencing it. Home businesses flourish because there is no partner demanding time or attention during key work hours. Investments grow because every dollar is allocated with intention rather than split across shared expenses. Crypto portfolios become personal projects that offer excitement and potential without the interpersonal complications. This is how men are building their futures in 2026. They are not waiting for society to fix itself. They are fixing their own corner of it through deliberate minimalism and self focus. The intensity of their commitment comes from the direct experiences that led them here. They have seen too many lives derailed by a system that promised fairness but delivered imbalance. Fathers who provided financially but were treated as secondary parents. Friends who faced social and professional repercussions from movements that sometimes prioritized accusation over evidence. Brothers who entered marriage with optimism only to exit with financial and emotional scars. These stories are not rare. They are the collective memory that informs the current generation's choices. Men got the message and they internalized it. The system was broken for them, and so they broke ties with it. Voluntary celibacy is the clean break that allows healing and growth. It is not about hating the opposite sex, but about loving oneself enough to avoid situations that have proven harmful. This clarity filters the professional tone we maintain, even as the directness cuts through the usual platitudes. We are not here to sugarcoat. We are here to observe and report on what is happening so that viewers can make informed decisions for their own lives. The social fabric is changing, and men are leading the change by example rather than by confrontation. They simply stopped participating in the areas that no longer serve them, and the ripple effects are now visible everywhere. Women who once felt empowered by independence are now confronting the practical side of that empowerment when support networks falter. The state as a partner has shown its limits through budget constraints and bureaucratic delays. Basic living expenses that were once shared or offset are now borne fully by individuals, and many women are finding the load unsustainable. Reports of women in cars or shelters are increasing as housing costs outpace earnings. This is the economic reality that experts have been warning about, and 2026 is making it impossible to deny. Men are insulated because their minimalist approach means lower overhead and higher adaptability. They do not require large spaces or extensive social calendars to feel complete. A simple setup with essentials is their baseline, and anything additional is a bonus chosen freely. This is why they can live happily in what others might see as limited conditions. The shoebox apartment with a mattress, a shower, a toilet, and basic entertainment is not a downgrade for most men. It is an upgrade in freedom and reduced stress. Clutter is avoided because more things often mean more maintenance and more distraction. Men prefer to own selectively what they need and rid themselves of what brings unnecessary burden. This mindset extends to relationships where the potential for clutter, emotional, financial, and legal is now weighed heavily. If the addition does not clearly enhance life without introducing stress, it is avoided. Voluntary celibacy is the ultimate application of this principle. It keeps life clean and focused. Without the need to date or pursue women, men are saving money at rates that allow for real wealth building. They invest in assets that grow independently of market whims tied to traditional economies. They start businesses from home that align with their skills and interests without the pressure of supporting a household. They enjoy good food prepared on their own grills, good drinks that suit their taste, and the solitude that allows full appreciation of these simple pleasures. Video games become a source of relaxation rather than a point of conflict. Workouts build strength and discipline without the need to impress. This is the personal heaven that men are constructing, and it is sustainable because it relies on no one else. The loss of the bargaining chip is significant because it removes the assumption that men will always return for certain incentives. When men view sex as undesirable, or at least not worth the associated risks, the entire power structure shifts. Women have no remaining leverage to negotiate the return of male attention or support. They must face the world head on, and the realities are harsher than many anticipated. Nature designed men for survival and women for replication, nurturing, and caregiving. The collusion with state structures disrupted this by making men optional in the reproduction and family equation. Authority over children was delegated away from fathers and towards systems that often favored one side. Men saw this and chose not to participate. They abandoned the dating economy because it no longer increased their survivability. Instead, it decreased it through potential loss of resources and autonomy. This is the rational calculation that drives voluntary celibacy. It is not emotional withdrawal, but strategic disengagement. Men understand the broken system that affected their fathers and friends, and they refuse to repeat the pattern. They are done subsidizing a society that viewed them as disposable after 50 years of cultural shifts. The directness of this stance is what gives it strength. Men are not begging or protesting, they are simply living differently, and the results speak for themselves. Women are now living in situations that highlight the gap. Some are in shelters because independent housing is out of reach. Others are in cars as temporary solutions while searching for stability. The streets are becoming a reality for a growing number as costs continue to rise. This is only getting worse in 2026 as economic experts signal broader collapse. Men, on the other hand, are fine overall. Their minimalist nature allows them to adapt without panic. They do not need much to survive, and they find happiness in the little they have. This is the key difference that explains the current divide. Women will always want more, while men see more as potential clutter and stress. The selective ownership that men practice keeps their lives streamlined and peaceful. Without women in the picture, they save, invest, and build without distraction. The peace of solitude is the reward that keeps them committed. They see sex, women, and children as liabilities now because the system has made them so. The final chip is gone, and women must confront the harsh realities without the previous buffer. It is like the warning that was issued years ago. Winter has arrived, and the cold is being felt by those who were not prepared. Men prepared by walking away, and they are not looking back. This is the story we are telling today. The story of men choosing voluntary celibacy over dating in 2026, because it is the path to peace and self preservation in a collapsing society. They did what was asked, they left women alone, they stopped approaching, they found fulfillment in their own way, and now the consequences are playing out. Society is collapsing, and women are completely on their own. Men are focusing on themselves and their personal heavens. This is the new reality, and it is one that men are embracing fully. The rhetorical pacing allows us to reflect on each element with care. The intensity is maintained through direct language that names the issues without unnecessary embellishment. The professionalism comes from framing it as observation and choice rather than accusation. Men are not the villains in this narrative. They are the ones who adapted to the conditions presented to them. Women are not the villains either. They are navigating a world shaped by collective decisions that have led to this point. The state is the structure that both sides engaged with, and it is showing its limits. The result is a natural sorting where men thrive in independence and women face the challenges of full autonomy. Voluntary celibacy is the tool that allows men to navigate this sorting successfully. It is a choice for clarity over confusion, self reliance over dependence, and peace over drama. As 2026 unfolds, the numbers will continue to show the trend. More men opting out, more women feeling the strain, and a society that must reckon with the imbalance. Men will not return because the peace is too good and the risks are too real. They have built their lives on solid ground and they intend to keep it that way. The streets are a last resort that no one wants, but some are facing. This is the direct consequence of the shift, and it is why some voices are now calling for men to return. The begging for approaches and dates is the acknowledgement that the previous messages to leave women alone have had unintended outcomes. Men heard those messages and complied. They are not reversing course because the benefits of compliance have proven greater than the cost of participation. This is the intensity of the truth. It is professional in its presentation, but direct in its implications. Society is collapsing under the weight of these dynamics, and 2026 is the year the collapse becomes visible to all. Men are fine because they prepared. Women are not because they did not anticipate the full scope. The state is broke and cannot bridge the gap. This is the reality we are living, and the voluntary celibacy choice is the smart response for men. As the group of friends continued their shared journey into this new way of living, they noticed changes that went far beyond the initial sense of relief and financial gains. One of them, a software developer who had always felt pulled in multiple directions by social obligations, began dedicating uninterrupted blocks of time to mastering advanced coding techniques that he had previously set aside. Within a year, he had developed a specialized application focused on personal efficiency tools that quickly gained traction among other independent professionals, creating a steady income stream that allowed him to scale back his main job to part time. This shift gave him the freedom to explore creative side projects like building custom automation scripts for everyday tasks that enhanced his own routines without any external pressure to deliver for someone else. Another friend, a former sales representative who once spent evenings networking at events that felt obligatory, now channeled his energy into physical conditioning programs that he designed himself, incorporating elements from various disciplines to build not just strength, but overall resilience. His consistent progress led to certifications and personal training that he pursued purely for the knowledge, and he started offering virtual sessions to a small circle of like minded individuals who valued the straightforward approach without any relational entanglements. The third member of the group, an educator by background, turned his attention to curating digital libraries of historical and practical resources that he made available through a modest subscription model. This endeavor not only provided supplemental income, but also fostered a sense of purpose as he connected with others seeking the same kind of unfiltered information that had helped him redefine his priorities. These outcomes were not planned in advance, but emerged naturally from the space and clarity that came with prioritizing personal direction over external demands. The friendships among them deepened through regular discussions where they exchanged ideas on optimizing daily structures without ever drifting into topics that required compromise or emotional labor. This network became a quiet support system grounded in mutual respect and shared understanding of the value found in independence. Over time, they observed how their collective choices began influencing their professional circles as colleagues noticed the increased focus and stability leading to organic opportunities for collaboration on projects that aligned with self directed goals rather than group expectations tied to traditional social frameworks. The long term effects on career trajectories became evident as these men and others following similar paths reported accelerated advancements that stemmed directly from the elimination of divided attention. Without the need to balance time between personal pursuits and maintaining connections that often demanded flexibility on short notice, many found themselves able to take on challenging assignments or invest in continuous learning programs that yielded promotions or entrepreneurial breakthroughs. One man who had transitioned from a corporate role to consulting described how he could now respond to client needs with full availability during peak creative hours because there were no competing personal schedules to navigate. This reliability built his reputation quickly, resulting in a client base that appreciated the efficiency and consistency he brought to the table. Another individual who had been in a technical field for over a decade used the extra hours to patent a small invention related to home energy management, which opened doors to partnerships with manufacturers interested in practical innovations. These stories highlight a pattern where the absence of certain relational variables allows for a level of professional immersion that translates into tangible achievements without the burnout that often accompanies fragmented lifestyles. Health markers improved in measurable ways as well, with many noting lower resting heart rates, better sleep quality, and enhanced mental sharpness after consistent periods of this focused living. Routine medical checkups revealed reduced stress indicators and improved metabolic profiles attributed to the stable routines that prioritize nutrition and activity on individual terms rather than adapting to someone else's preferences or availability. The psychological benefits extended to greater emotional regulation since decisions were made based on internal assessments rather than external validations, leading to a steadier outlook that carried over into all areas of interaction. This was not about withdrawing from the world, but about engaging with it on terms that preserved energy for what truly mattered to each man. Cultural shifts started to emerge as larger numbers adopted this approach, influencing everything from media consumption to community formations. Men began creating online spaces dedicated to sharing practical knowledge on self sufficiency topics, ranging from financial strategies to skill development workshops that emphasized actionable steps without any overlay of social performance. These platforms grew organically as participants valued the directness and lack of filler content, allowing for genuine exchanges that built collective intelligence. In physical locales, informal gatherings formed around shared interests like group fitness challenges or discussion meetups centered on current events and personal growth, where the atmosphere remained free of pressure to conform to outdated expectations. This evolution represented a redefinition of modern masculinity, not through confrontation, but through demonstration of what becomes possible when energy is conserved and directed inward first. Industries adapted in response with sectors like personal technology, seeing surges in demand for tools that support solo optimization, such as advanced home automation systems or apps designed for individual productivity tracking. Fitness and wellness markets expanded, offerings tailored to self guided programs that required no partner involvement, while entertainment options evolved to cater to those seeking immersive experiences that could be enjoyed independently. The dating and relationship service industry, on the other hand, faced measurable contractions as participation from one side diminished, leading to adjustments in marketing and features that attempted to address the changing dynamics but often fell short of reversing the trend. These adaptations were not sudden disruptions, but gradual realignments that reflected the broader preference for structures supporting autonomy over interdependence in its previous form. Philosophically, the movement prompted deeper reflections on the balance between individual agency and collective structures in contemporary life. Many men articulated a renewed appreciation for the natural order where survival instincts align with personal responsibility rather than delegated authority. This perspective fostered a sense of empowerment that came from aligning actions with inherent strengths instead of fighting against systems that had grown misaligned over time. Rhetorical questions arose in private conversations about what future societies might look like when a significant portion of the population chooses paths that prioritize self mastery. Would innovation accelerate as more individuals pour undivided effort into their domains, or would certain collaborative areas require new models to sustain progress? These inquiries remained open ended, but the lived experiences provided preliminary answers through the steady accumulation of personal successes and stable foundations. One man who had maintained this lifestyle for several years shared how it allowed him to travel lightly, pursuing interests in remote locations without logistical complications or concerns about compatibility. His journeys became opportunities for self discovery and skill acquisition, such as learning local trades or documenting environmental observations that he later incorporated into creative outlets. Another described the satisfaction of completing long term personal projects like restoring vintage equipment or cultivating a small garden space that provided both sustenance and a meditative practice. These examples illustrated how the choice opened avenues for exploration that were previously sidelined by competing priorities. As 2026 progressed, the signals from various experts reinforced the durability of this trend, pointing to sustained changes in demographic patterns and resource allocation. Projections indicated continued adjustments in housing preferences, with demand shifting toward compact, efficient units that suited independent living. Labor market analyses showed increased entrepreneurship rates among certain demographics as men leveraged their freed resources to launch ventures that operated on lean principles. Educational enrollment in field emphasizing practical trades and technical mastery rose as individuals sought to build versatile capabilities that enhanced self reliance. These developments were framed not as crises, but as evolutionary responses to the realities of resource distribution and personal priorities in an era of economic tightening. The intensity of the transformation lay in its quiet persistence, where each man making the decision contributed to a larger pattern without needing coordination or public declaration. It was the kind of shift that builds momentum through results rather than rhetoric, allowing the benefits to speak for themselves over time. Women navigating the same landscape began exploring alternative support networks, some turning to professional services or community programs that aimed to fill gaps in practical assistance. While these efforts showed varying degrees of success, they underscored the fundamental differences in how independence manifests when foundational designs are considered. The direct observation remained that complementary roles, when respected, lead to greater overall stability, but when overlooked, create the very pressures now being addressed through individual adaptation. Further stories emerged from men who had integrated this choice into family backgrounds in unique ways. One individual who had grown up observing the challenges faced by previous generations used his clarity to mentor younger relatives through example rather than advice, demonstrating how focused living creates buffers against uncertainty. His nephews began adopting elements of the approach in their own early careers, leading to noticeable improvements in their academic and professional pursuits. Another man channeled his experiences into documenting processes for efficient living, sharing them through written guides that gained a following among those seeking similar outcomes. These contributions added layers to the cultural dialogue without demanding participation, but simply offering insights for those ready to receive them. Health and wellness continued to show positive trajectories, with many reporting sustained energy levels that supported ambitious goals like completing endurance events or pursuing advanced certifications in fields of interest. The absence of certain stressors allowed for recovery periods that optimized physical performance and cognitive function, creating a virtuous cycle of improvement. Financial independence reached new levels as compounded savings and investment returns provided options for early transitions or phased retirements that aligned with personal visions rather than external timelines. This level of control represented a profound departure from previous norms where life stages were often dictated by relational milestones. The rhetorical pacing of these changes invited consideration of how they might influence broader innovation landscapes. With more men directing resources towards self contained projects, the pace of certain technological advancements quickened in areas like personal computing and sustainable living solutions. Startups focused on modular home systems or portable energy devices found receptive audiences among those building efficient personal environments. Creative industries saw contributions from individuals who had time to develop artistic or inventive pursuits without the constraints of divided commitments. These outputs enriched the available options for everyone, even as they originated from solitary foundations. The directness of the overall message remained clear in its implications for the years ahead. The choices being made today were setting precedents that would shape interactions and expectations moving forward. Men who had embraced this path expressed no regret as the accumulated evidence of improved quality of life continued to mount. They viewed the developments as confirmation that aligning with practical realities yields sustainable results, even when those realities challenge long held assumptions. As we draw this discussion to a close, it is worth reflecting on the full scope of what has unfolded in 2026. The patterns established through deliberate decisions have created a landscape where personal peace and progress stand as achievable outcomes for those willing to prioritize them. What stands out is the consistency across individual experiences where the rewards of clarity and autonomy outweigh any perceived trade offs. This is not a fleeting phase, but a structured response to observable conditions that has proven its worth through real world application. What did you think about what was discussed here today? Do you agree with the observations on these shifts and the ways men are navigating them? Leave a comment on the video sharing your thoughts because your perspective adds to the conversation and helps everyone gain a fuller picture. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.